Hey guys, what's up? Sando here. And today I'll be testing a successor to the biggest headphone that I know, the Erzetich Phobos, the scary looking Erzetich Phobos that was updated with some fresh new looks and most importantly with some clever tinkering behind the drivers. A 2021 suffix was added to avoid confusion, and this is going for the same price as before, for 2,000 euros, so this is a high-end pair of headphones. This is a loaner unit from Erzetich, so thank you Blas for making this happen. I'm listening to them for about 4 months now, and I believe that I'm ready to offer my final impressions, so let's check them out. As their predecessor, the newest Phobos is a monster of a headphone, dwarfing any other units from my personal collection. If you think that Odyssey LCD4 are big and scary, wait until Phobos hops on the same table. With 2021 version, Erzetich redesigned their ear caps from the ground up, adding a CNC milled aluminum cover, crafting brand new height adjustment clip and a carbon fiber headband that adds some style and authenticity to a familiar face. Underneath their metallic cap covers, you'll find aged linden wood caps that are manually carved in a striking octagonal shape. Their caps have colossal proportions, and that's what I like the most about them. With a diagonal of 11.3 centimeters, these are simply the largest ear caps that passed through these hands. Their ear pads are detachable, of course, and are made out of leather-free materials. They are wrapping my ears snugly, and if you have a bigger melon like mine, you shouldn't worry about the comfort levels, as they provide the right amount of side pressure and the right ear pad opening to be worn for a couple of hours. Their cables are handmade, high purity copper conductors are being used, and I'm happy to see mini XLR connectors, as those are my favorite. The only thing that I dislike about this cable is that there are some microphonics when it's rubbing against my clothing, and secondly, this isn't really the most flexible cable that I've used as of late. On the plus side, you can use any other third-party cable or just your regular Odyssey, ZMF or Kenerton cables. As for tech inside them, we're talking about one of the largest planar-magnetic drivers in existence, put in an open back configuration. Erzetich doesn't specify a lot about them, mentioning only their impedance of 45 ohms, and that's where all the specs are seeing a full stop. After opening them up, I've measured the driver assembly at 105 centimeters in diagonal, which is huge by my standards. No sensitivity numbers were given, but seeing that it's only by about 4 dB less sensitive to a Kenerton Wodan, I suggest that Phobos has it at around 99 or 100 dB per a single milliwatt of power, which is actually very easy to drive by Planar Mafia standards. In terms of sound performance, as a small detour, these are using exactly the same drivers with the older Phobos, so they have the same sensitivity, the same impedance, the same driver assembly, and yet they are sounding very, very different. So the newest one is just somehow purer sounding, more cohesive sounding, while completely discarding some nasty treble ringing, nasty distortions that was happening in the upper treble with the older Phobos. So I believe that Erzetich just hammered down all the scones that was happening with the older Phobos when I was listening to them in some long listening sessions with rock, metal or blues tunes and so on. When all the distortions are going down, I believe that the timing is being improved, the driver control is being improved, and all that just brings up a little bit more detailed retrieval, slightly more transparency. So I believe that the newest Phobos is just clearer sounding, more transparent, more detailed, while being slightly more natural, slightly smoother sounding in the treble. So what was a very solid 8 out of 10 with the old Phobos is now at around 9+ out of 10 with the new Phobos, making them considerably nicer sounding, in my opinion, compared to the older one. Apart from that, these are definitely some flagship material headphones, so I find them very technical sounding. I find them slightly more resolving compared to, say, an Odyssey LCD2, LCD3, more resolving to Mese Empyrean, slightly more resolving to Kenerton Wodan, and pretty much on the same level with something like Hyphaman Aria Stealth Edition. Having some ginormous drivers, huge drivers, these are sounding super big, so very big, very enveloping. Honestly, these are providing some of the biggest soundstage that I've heard with headphones, so just bigger even compared to LCD4, to high-performance Vara being driven by some power amplifiers. So in my opinion, soundstage and their engagement factor, their punch, are very, very impressive, something that not a lot of headphones are doing. Obviously not on the same level with something like HD 800 in terms of stage size, openness, but not far from that kind of sound. In terms of power requirements, contrary to popular beliefs, even some scary looking headphones like these ones can sound pretty decent out of portable devices, out of some regular headphone jacks. So with a sensitivity of 99 to around 100 dB per 1 single milliwatt of power, you can drive these with pretty much anything that has a headphone jack, but of course all those laptops, tablets and smartphones wouldn't have so much headroom on top, and of course wouldn't offer the best dynamics. So they work really great out of some portable dongles, DAC amp combos, portable DAC amp combos, but obviously they sound slightly more engaging, more toy tapping, more interesting out of dedicated desktop class DACs and headphone amplifiers. What I really like about the Phobos is that system matching is really a non-issue with the Phobos. So you might, with something like Hi-Fi Aria, for example, Aria Stealth, you need to add a warmer sounding source and amplifier just to counterbalance. There is slight brightness and thin mid-range, but it's really a non-issue with the Phobos because they're sounding really natural, really lifelike and likable in a way, even in the stock form. So you can add even THX AAA amplifiers with them, NFC amplifiers of topping, transistor-based amplifiers, no problem, entry-level SMSL stacks, sheet stacks, and they will still sound lifelike and really amazing in terms of timbre. In terms of transients, when Igor and Gojira made an appearance on my playlist, it was very clear to me that I'm dealing with a very fast-moving diaphragm that fires just like Canon-like bass notes in no time. That was very apparent. And besides being super technical, so very impressive in terms of technicalities, I believe that Phobos wants to be remembered as a fun and engaging sounding headphone. So this is not your typical linear, straight as a line headphone like Hi-Fi Vara, for example. This is really fun and engaging sounding in my opinion. So put them on some transistor-based amplifiers and just watch those drivers fly in all directions and your earlobes as well. Because in reality, these are really toy tapping and really engaging type of headphones. So the only thing that I dislike about them in this department is that there is a roll-off in the sub-bass. So below 50 Hz, there is a gentle roll-off. So you'll be hearing all that thump and impact just above 50 Hz, and that is the biggest con that I have with them. So in terms of how impactful, how punchy, how slamming they sounded, I believe that they are more impressive compared to something like Kenerton Wodan, like Hi-Fi Aria Stealth Edition, like Sandy Peacock, but less impressive to Odyssey LCD4 and Hi-Fi Vara while being driven by some powerful amplifiers. In terms of soundstage, honestly, what you can expect out of some of the biggest planar drivers in existence, and it's also very easy to drive. So they are offering, in my opinion, a truly out-of-head experience. So these are truly big sounding, very airy, very enveloping sounding, very impressive in this department. When I'm going outside, I'm always going with some IEMs. I'm inserting them deep into my ear canals with a portable player, something like that. And when I'm coming back and when I'm putting something like Phobos on my head, I'm always, wow, what a big change, what a substantial change in terms of soundstage. So these are not sounding like your typical headphones, so this is not your natural type of soundstage. This is truly an out-of-head experience. This is big, this is enveloping, something that not a lot of planars can do. They are bigger sounding to most planars that I have in my possession, so certainly bigger than Aria, than HE1000 SE, bigger, slightly bigger than Odyssey LCD4, so very impressive in terms of soundstage size, in terms of depth. They are sounding to me more like some near-field monitors put in a stereo setup and not like a pair of headphones data setting on your head with some driver sitting millimeters or centimeters away from your eardrums. So transient response might be the true calling, but I believe that Soundstage and everything that has to do with Soundstage, so depth, imaging, all that is certainly the second most impressive part. So they are not sounding as big, as enveloping as something like Sennheiser HD800, but they are not that far off, which makes them truly special in this department. Moving on to detail retrieval and transparency, I believe that their predecessors were already quite impressive in this department, but I believe the newest Phobos is even better. Why? So they made the ball structure more solid, so it's stiffer. The drivers aren't dancing this time around together with the wall headphone with the wall caps, and of course all that distortion went down. All that rattle that was happening at much louder volume, so when I was going past 90 dB, went down, and that means that all the transparency detail retrieval went up with the newest Phobos, and that was makes them really interesting, not only with low-level listening, but you can go much louder with this and they will still sound very clean, very defined, pretty much distortionless. So in my opinion, these are slightly more resolving compared to Kineton Wodan, more resolving to Sandy Peacock, and pretty much on the same level with HiFiMan Aria Stealth Edition, which is quite impressive considering that we're dealing with a one-man company like Erzetich Audio. Very impressive. Small nuances, I can hear that easily without flexing my mind. Mastering errors, too many were showing uninvited in my tracks. Small chit-chat in the auditorium on some live recordings. Please make them stop with the Phobos. So what I want to tell to you is that Phobos is a very honest sounding, very transparent sounding headphone. You can easily compare DACs headphone amplifiers with this particular unit, and I didn't need some reference recordings to feel a higher transparency and that a veil is being lifted from my music. Moving on to frequency response, there are some great things and some less great things to say about the Phobos. First of all, the sub bass is slightly rolled off, so up until 50 Hz it isn't that impressive, so there is less definition, just less information to be heard up until 50 Hz is being reached. You can improve that with some full leather earpads. I've tried some Kineton full leather earpads and I improved that sub bass, but I lost some definition, some control and some cleanness in the bass. So I don't recommend doing that. I believe that the stock earpads are slightly better. I believe that a hybrid earpad might add a little bit of bass and maybe make that region slightly clearer, but I'm not really sure because I don't have one at my disposal. So apart from having a substantial difference between a sub bass and mid bass, because mid bass is elevated and sub bass is rolled off, I believe that these are offering a very agile type of bass, so they have very short decays, so nothing lingers too much, everything happens right now, super fast, so you can listen to electronic and just feel all that energy. Double drums sounded really impressive. It's a clean type of bass. You can hear all those layers of bass just coming one after the other, so this is definitely agile and impactful type of bass, which is, yeah, makes them quite interesting in this department. When we are talking about some planar headphones of some colossal proportions like Phobos, then we are definitely talking about some amazing bass and mid-range rendition, and that was certainly the case with Phobos. So I believe that mid-range is actually the only region in the frequency response that is straight as a line, so there is no rises, no drops in here. So it's flat, but it's very impressive. So I find them fuller sounding, smoother sounding, weightier sounding compared to all HiFiMan headphones, but less so compared to Odyssey headphones that still sounded slightly creamier in here. So with something like piano notes, you'll definitely hear the texture and the weight, the added weight. You'll feel the substance of double bass and the heavyweight air traveling around. I believe that the human pitch was perfectly preserved, so there is a big difference between female and male voices, so the human pitch was just amazing. I believe that mid-range is actually one of the best parts of this headphone, and again I believe that mid-range is being covered in full. When it comes to treble, in some ways it sounds very similar to the old Phobos, and in other ways it's a completely different headphone altogether. So first of all, I believe that they are covering the treble region in full, so they are going even past the top octave. You can hear that pretty easily. There are several dips in the treble, so especially in the most sensitive part of our hearing, but most importantly there are no rises past my linearity curve, so you will never find them bright or just harsh sounding in low listening sessions. However, with the old Phobos, I could hardly pass 90 dB when I was listening to music, because they would start to distort, the wall driver assembly would start vibrating, the driver would start rattling around, and that would add some distortions, some unwanted treble ringing, some brightness in a way. And that isn't really happening with the new Phobos, so the treble feels not only clearer, more detailed, but also less harsh, so I could listen to even treble intensive music like rock and metal, no problem with the new Phobos, something that was good with the older Phobos, but not that amazing. So in the end, we're getting a clearer type of treble, more detailed type of treble, while being slightly less bothersome in long listening sessions, which is really a big achievement of the newest Phobos. I've also measured their performance using a mini DSP ear system, so everything from frequency response, total harmonic distortion, spectral decay, waterfall, and spectrogram. But since I don't enjoy long and boring reviews, I strongly recommend checking out my measurement analysis in the written review that I've put below. You'll also find a must-read comparison with the older Phobos and with the HiFiMan Aria Stealth Edition, which I find quite interesting, so please check all that goodness below. Okay guys, as for my conclusions, it seems that Erzetich Audio took an already great sounding headphone and just hammered down all their imperfections, and this is what you're getting. So it's the same good old Phobos that sounds big, enveloping, but just toning down all that brightness, all that listening fatigue. Transparency and detailed retrieval went up, all that nasty brightness, all that treble ringing went down, and that improved their timing and their driver control. In the end, Gold Award was fully deserved, and I challenge you finding a more interesting sounding headphone in this particular price bracket. Please don't go yet, because I prepared a big surprise for you. I've partnered with Erzetich Audio for a 15% discount code, not only for Phobos, but for all things Erzetich Audio. At checkout, please use Sound News discount code for a 50% off, but please hurry up, because it will expire at the last day of 2021. Okay guys, my full in-depth review can be found on my website. It's much longer than this one. In case you want to support this channel, please subscribe to it. Thank you for doing that. And as usual, listen to my music, be positive, and I'll see you soon. Cheers!